Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness. This is episode 148.
Welcome back to another week of our Let's Be Well Together podcast. I'm Noura, Saad. I'm here with John Webster. John, what's on your mind this week?
Well, you told me that you just did mental health first aid training. And so I have to ask you about it because that's kind of one of the main reasons why this whole thing started. Not only was I getting back into shape and running and had lots of time to think, I was thinking about philosophy, but I took the mental health first aid training way back in 2018. And a couple of things got said during that session that really opened up a lot of thoughts and ultimately resulted in the approach that I take with the 8 categories and the rest of it. So I can't help but ask about some takeaways and what you thought about it. And by the way, it's amazing to do it face-to-face. It's been a while. The last few times we've done this, it's been through Zoom. So I'm so happy that we can do this face-to-face. So takeaways from yesterday, what are some of your impressions?
You know, John, I wish it was a longer session. It was a one-day course. I could have sat through even more than that, but there was a lot of things that stuck with me. I think I went in wanting to learn more about suicidal ideation and how to support folks through that. And one of the takeaways I took was our language matters. So, you know, I'm not a very confrontational person. So I asked the questions about how can we assess or find out if somebody has suicidal ideation, but maybe not confrontationally asking them that. And one of the suggestions that the instructor had suggested with our group was to change the language, and not just with suicide, but, you know, in other realms, and maybe ask it in the angle of, are you considering self-harm? You know, making it a little bit more personable and a little bit more human and taking it from that angle. And the instructor was quite harsh and said something very honestly and said, focus on saving a friend and not a friendship.
That's really interesting. I mean, I know that, ultimately, I think you're talking about a pretty specific example of an issue someone might be talking to you about, whereas the course in general talked about a whole bunch of other contexts and different contexts. But yeah, we had the good fortune of speaking with Elisa Brewer-Singh on some earlier episodes, really close to the start. I was surprised there too, because I think what you're saying is you would not want to ask the person outright a question that has anything to do with what they're thinking in that regard. But what we're hearing is it is something to do. Choose your words. And so, for example, you know, you might say something, you're having a conversation and you're starting to get concerned. And you could say, are you having feelings of self-harm? Are you considering self-harm? The myth is that that's going to make someone want to commit suicide. Whereas what they find is that it can help open a discussion and it won't make someone want to do that, but it might bring things more open and help you guys both move forward.
And I think that was the overall takeaway of the course, John, is to just have a conversation, just open the, you know, communication lines, because we really never know. And having that first conversation really gets things started.
Essentially, just for people who've never heard of it, the concept is, and so people who in different workplaces or different scenarios, but I'm thinking of it in the context of a workplace, you get trained in mental health first aid so that if you're at your workplace and if someone were to cut their hand or break an arm, there's physical first aid you can do. This is in the context where somebody's experiencing some type of mental health issue. And that could be just having a bad day. That could be something more serious. That could be someone having a schizophrenic episode. That could be somebody, you know, having any type of situation. And what this course tries to teach you is how to deal with that situation and how to help the person. And, you know, we can't teach the course and we're not going to go over everything that's in it. But like the biggest takeaway I did to that has to do with a couple things. So I'm a lawyer. If you come to me with a problem, I want to A, understand it, and B, solve it, right? So
absolutely.
To understand it, I'm going to cross-examine you, Noura.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. So you're telling me this story, John, I'm having a really bad day. this happened and that happened. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. I don't think that can follow this. So how did you get from this to that? And I'm interrupting your train of thought. Turns out that that's not a really good thing to do. Listen and let them talk. And then I want to solve your problem. Okay, well, there actually isn't anyone talking to you. Like, so let's say unfortunately somebody's having an episode where they think somebody's talking to them. They can't get this voice out of their head, but there's no one physically there. Doesn't help to say, there's nobody there. Now I fixed your problem. You know, an example of something that you might say is, if I were in your position, I would be feeling stress as well, you know, but so I had to break the habit of cross-examining to get the facts right and then telling them what to do. And it's more about active listening, empathy, hearing them, trying to figure out how they're doing. Ultimately, you're going to want to assess if you should be recommending to them that they should get some other help. Yes. But a lot of cool lessons.
Absolutely. And I think, John, just being there and just sitting and listening with people, sometimes that's all they really need. Sometimes it's not even needing to get to the level of crisis. They just want to feel heard, and really that the person is walking with them alongside, you know, whatever challenge they're having. But highly recommend, if this is something that crosses someone's as an opportunity for a training, I highly recommend it. There was so many takeaways, both professionally, personally, interpersonal, that I really, really enjoyed the course.
You said that they had some pretty good discussions too. Like, how did that, you know, we don't have to repeat the discussion, but how did it go in terms of the dynamic there and talking to some of the other people in the course?
Well, everyone are coming from, you know, they're coming with their different hats depending on their respective professions. But it was just so nice to see that we didn't all align in some of our experiences or some of our approaches when it came to certain scenarios. And however, we had respectful communication was actually quite a big topic during the course of how we would dissect working with that person. One of the things that stood out to me, actually, a lawyer had suggested, is to take into consideration the cultural aspects of how to go about supporting someone. Because again, culture plays a big role. You know, somebody brought up breaking bread and how, you know, having a beverage or having a meal with them is a way of bringing a commonality and helping them. So I think the discussions I was sharing with the instructor, it really helped the material to sit, because rather than just, you know, see another PowerPoint or look at another sheet, you're really absorbing it and taking it in on a worldly, everyday scale.
The other thing about that is that you get different scenarios. People talk about different scenarios. And I like that breaking bread thing. So let me back up a bit too. In terms of the podcast and people talking to friends and loved ones and whatnot, we've often said in the past, and we're going to keep saying, that we often think of like an all or nothing scenario, right? Like you're either okay or it's an extreme and you need some kind of professional help, like a psychiatrist or a doctor or something. But for the most part, for most of us, that dichotomy doesn't exist. For the most of us, I'm just having a bad day, or I've had several bad days in a row, or I'm under a lot of stress. I don't need any pills. I don't need a doctor. I'm not at that level. If you are at that level, please get help, but you're not. You want to talk to somebody. And wouldn't it be nice if there's someone in your office you could talk to? And I like the idea about getting a coffee or tea or whatever, a drink, or maybe going to a store close by to get something to eat. It's a different discussion than if you're sitting at your desk and they're sitting in the chair across from you, almost as if it is like a doctor scenario. So that's kind of cool to think about. I'm going to listen. I'm going to do active listening. And we've talked a lot about that. So you can find some past episodes about active listening. I'm going to listen. I'm going to hear you out. But why don't we put ourselves in a position where we're comfortable and it's easy to do that?
Before, you brought up a really great point, John, about even nonverbal communication. So, you know, sitting behind a desk, it seems a little bit more, it sounds very formal. And one of the things we discussed was removing the objects, removing the desk, or sitting in a circle, or just, you know, having a more open posture rather than sitting closed with their arms crossed and such. So there's so many different takeaways, so many different aspects. It's an important, you know, part of our everyday lives. I think our society tends to focus more on the physical, but mental health is, if not equal, but also more important. So I'm very thankful to have taken the course.
Yeah. And I mean, just to finish off, what I'm thinking is what I really liked about it was there was a demystification. So, okay, I can put a Band-Aid on a cut. That makes sense. I can call an ambulance for a broken arm. That makes sense. There's a lot of things on the physical world that just seem to make sense and are practical. And I wouldn't have thought that there's some similar topics in the mental health world, but there are. There are some things that we can all learn that are practical, that are helpful, and that when somebody's in a bit of an emergency or needs some help, it's some first aid that can kind of hopefully get them from where they are now to either a better position now or to getting help from someone who can help them. So I just thought it was really fascinating because it demystified things for me.
Absolutely.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds.
Today's interview is in the category of spiritual wellness. It's the first of 2 interviews with David Hulse, who bridges traditional religious doctrines with contemporary spiritual insights. He's the founder and spiritual guide at the Academy for Spiritual Awakening. Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me.
David Hulse is a vibrant spiritual guide with decades of experience as a minister, teacher, author, and healer. He's journeyed from a fundamentalist Christian upbringing to an inclusive spiritual vista that champions love over fear. David is the founder and spiritual guide at the Academy for Spiritual Awakening, where his teachings weave together diverse spiritual traditions with modern scientific insights, inspiring individuals to move beyond mere belief in God towards experiencing the divine within themselves. He's dedicated to challenging conventional religious dogmas. He offers a message of unconditional love, inclusivity, the power of gnosis, direct knowledge from the source. David empowers people to embody their true spiritual potential, fostering a global spiritual evolution. So David, for today's discussion, I'm intrigued by your journey from fear-based religious teachings to a love-centered approach. And here's one of the reasons. It's kind of an analogy. I often think about ethics, and lately I've gravitated towards moving away from ethics as judgment and thinking in terms of becoming an excellent person, gravitating to activities I admire in myself and others. And that's overtaken a judgment-based approach that's familiar to many traditional religions. And so that in part makes your journey so interesting to me. So could I ask you to tell us a bit about your transition?
Yeah, again, thank you, John. Well, my journey from traditional religion to love-based spirituality was a gradual but a very profound transformation. Growing up, I was immersed in a faith that emphasized fear, judgment, and strict doctrines. But as I evolved, I began to question those beliefs. One of the first things that formed in my mind that I knew that was coming from somewhere else other than my own brain was a thought. And that thought was, nobody in the Bible spoke English. What did they really say? That set me on a trajectory of research that I wanted to understand. And in the religion I was raised in, John, I was warned against any Eastern teachings, that they were not Christian, let's say, and therefore I stayed away from it for a long time. And then I realized, well, everybody in the Bible is from the East. The whole Bible is Near Eastern culture. Everything that the people of the Bible did was Eastern.
Right.
So I began to kind of study and look up a lot of verses in the Bible that were English, and I started looking them up in the Greek, in the New Testament, and Hebrew, and then Aramaic, which is a lost, old, ancient language that people spoke even before Hebrew took over, and then the Greek. So when I would get up and speak to people, I was speaking from the meanings of those languages rather than what the Bible said by the letter.
Okay.
So I found an audience for that. So that really is what moved me out of more religious dogma and doctrine toward a path of discovery. And I've continued on that for many decades, and I'm still discovering. There's no end to it. There's no absolute to it because we're creating this whole thing as we go.
Yeah, and I like that too, that you appreciate that you're creating something, probably not set in stone, but it continues to evolve. How would you describe what you call love-based spirituality?
Well, I didn't understand this idea of a God that they said was love, but at the same time, he would kill his own son. And all the people, I could just go through many places of the Bible where God wants to kill people and cause wars and things like that. And that's when, John, I realized there was something different between what I was being told outside and what I felt inside. And I don't know why, but I decided to follow what I felt inside. And I found this path that led me out eventually of the religion and denomination that I was raised in. And by the way, my own aunt was my pastor. My uncle was the overseer of the denomination I was raised in. So I was definitely the radical one, the rebel of moving out from that. But that's the path that I have followed that ends up as this Academy for Spiritual Awakening.
I think a lot of people can relate to the feeling that they grow up within a religion and parts of it don't feel right. I keep coming back to judgment, but you're not supposed to like this, or people who do certain things should be punished, and people who do other things will burn for eternity and all that kind of stuff. And it does feel awkward. I can imagine if you feel something inward about love, compassion, community, how that would be kind of a different way to go, and I would say a better path to follow.
I think so. There's a quote that says, there's a path that shines brighter and brighter to a full and perfect day, and there's a path that seems right, but the end of it is death. And so I decided to get on the path that was shining more and more toward what we call enlightenment or awakenment. John, I really believe that the majority of people, as far as religion and spirituality, are still kind of in some kind of an illusionary dream state, sleep. And all through even the Bible, I noticed from beginning to end, the message was wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then I got into A Course in Miracles, and it talked about how that actually we're living in this simulated type of 3D simulated illusionary world, kind of like the Matrix idea. I think that movie was more of a prophecy than it was entertainment. And so I think we've been shown through, religion doesn't show us how to get out of that, but spirituality does.
It reminds me, there's an old story from philosophy where Immanuel Kant at one point said that he'd been awakened from a dogmatic slumber by reading David Hume. And then he went off on this whole other path. So that's a really interesting thing. And I think too, like if you are doing something and you feel lit up from within, I can see that now moving towards growth, where if you're so concerned about keeping everyone else from doing the stuff they're not supposed to do and that kind of thing, you're not really building yourself up, you're doing other stuff.
Well, the fact that Christianity built itself also on the Old Testament Judeo, which is all about law. There's 613 laws that you have to keep to be accepted as a perfect person, which was totally ridiculous. Not eating shrimp and not mixing linen with wool and just all these crazy things that are still being thrown on us to make us feel condemned and to feel lesser than who we truly are. But then we move into a time in which spirituality was offered to us 2,000 years ago. And I'm not sure that religion or the church, and when I say church, I'm talking about the man-made religion, really followed that path out, but they kind of stayed in it. I begin to question, the big question is the God question. What is this God thing? I've just been searching that for 60 years.
Right.
What is God? And every time I thought I got it figured out, it slipped away from me. And finally, I just came to a realization that God is a non-local, non-definable consciousness interacting with itself. That's my personal definition.
Okay.
And this whole thing of the old man in the sky, this anthropomorphic old man in the sky that looks like us, it just dissolved. And I realized that the God I was looking for was the presence within myself.
I was speaking with a United Church minister, and she had a slightly different view than many. And she talked about kind of the universe and a cosmic force and permeating everything and permeating all life, which sounds similar to what you're talking about.
Very much so. I mean, just look at nature, flowers that bloom and whatever. We don't see that intelligence, but it's there. It shows it's there. Well, the fact that we exist, I call it the I am presence, tells us that there's some intelligence. Now, what we call it, that's another thing. I think God is kind of a word that shows up later. And I tell you, John, the real revelation with me was an experience that I had, that I discovered that God is my own potential. It's my unconscious part of myself. And that's what I try to do, is try to awaken that potential of the presence of our divinity, if you want to call it that, within our humanity. And I think once we do that, and we'll never do it until we have the environment of love. Love is the atmosphere for awakening to happen. And I'm not talking about the emotional loves. As human beings, we love on different levels. You love your mother different. You love your dog. You love your partner different. You love that's these phileo and eros, and then you have the agape love. And so I'm not talking about those kind of conditional loves. I'm talking about the state of a consciousness that makes us all one. And that's what quantum physics gave us, is as we moved from small particles, we thought atoms were the smallest particles, and we thought electrons and protons, and we just kept on till we ran out of things completely. And I think that's when we arrived at our own inner potential, or our own divinity. It just needs to be awakened in us.
And I wanted to ask you about love. In particular, you have a concept that you say unconditional love can be a foundation of spiritual growth and empowerment. And I wonder how you see that.
Well, if I'm in a state or consciousness of love, and you mentioned it earlier, that you're in a state of growth, you're moving towards something. It's what's moving you. And that's where we get the word spirit, right? The word spirit means motivation or breath that moves us. And religion, if you think about all the different systems in the world, we wait every year for the next new car. What's the next new fashion? But not religion. Religion is the only thing that got stuck in its own dogma that doesn't teach people growth and movement. And that bothered me. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to teach people how to grow and mature, because there's so much that we have yet to discover about who we really are. And I call it multidimensionalism. And now we have this new thing of multi-universes and all of that coming out. So I think being in a state of love allows us, if I'm constantly judging myself morally, did I do this right? I did that wrong. I'm not good enough. I'm whatever. I can't grow in that atmosphere. But if I accept unconditional love in that atmosphere, I can have the space, sacred space within myself to grow, to mature, to research, and to study. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of religion, is the fact of growth and study, which is why I want to have an academy, so we can find people on their path, so we can help them to move on toward their state of awakenment.
Well, I have to say, it sounds like, I'm just working intuitively off what I feel. And, I decided to kind of shake the shackles of judgment and all that other stuff and try and become the best person I can be. And that
Right.
sounds a lot like what you're talking about, a different way of saying growth. Another point you make is that it is possible for people to, as you say, heal their childhood religious root assumptions. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that we have these, what's called energy centers.
Okay.
The Eastern word for it is chakra, but actually they are energetic data banks where we bank our story. And for instance, in your root chakra or data bank is everything from the time you were being formed at conception all the way to about 5 or 6 years old. Now, the Catholic Church knew this, believe it or not, and said, give us your children until they're 5 or 6, we'll have them for life. because it's those early fundamental root assumptions of life and about yourself that you get modeled from your tribe or from family, society, and culture that begins to be the root assumptions that's in you. So what I am able to do as an energy worker, and what I've developed by using sound and vibration, is to go in and find some of the story that got stuck, that has not been resolved, and to help people to clear. Sometimes I think it's not about what we need to do, it's what we need to undo.
Right. I really like your idea of spirituality fostering resilience. It's a message we try and send too, that if you build up these different areas of wellness in your life, you see them in the wheel beside me, that you build up resilience. So, and how do you see that, the spirituality connection to that?
Great question. I'm very unique in this, but I do believe that we are first spiritual beings, or pure energy beings, however you want to say it. And I believe that we are that at the highest level of our existence or frequency, already whole. So when I have taught for 25 years, what I've taught practitioners is I've taught, don't work with people because you see them broken. Go and work with their wholeness. So I've turned this thing around completely. I'm not broken. I'm whole. I just consciously lost connection to my wholeness. So I try to help people to undo the blockages of misinformation, which religion has been a part of, but also other systems. I mean, we're finding out education wasn't so right either. Science has to relook at itself. So everything's kind of in a place of reviewing itself a little bit. And I think that that's an important thing that people begin to understand, that we are in such a transformation of these systems that we're in a breakdown mode. But why are we in a breakdown mode? Because something's breaking through. And I said, I'm going to work with what's breaking through and not what's just breaking down. I hope that makes some sense. That's a deep subject, but I just wanted to give you a little taste of that idea that we're already whole.
I love it. And we've talked to people too who've been like labeled different things when it comes to mental health issues. They don't like that. And that's not who they are. But what I really like about your message is the growth, the breaking through, the moving forward, the hopefulness of getting to next levels, which maybe we won't do right away, but maybe a couple generations down the road, but if we all work together. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this discussion. Now, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you or find your resources, how can they do that?
Sure. Your listeners can find out more at davidhulse.com. And Hulse is like your pulse with an H, and that's David, HULSE.com. They will find the Academy for Spiritual Awakening, a sanctuary for seeking higher consciousness, spiritual enlightenment, and a space of non-judgment and resources to find answers to their spiritual questions through diverse courses, support, community, and thought-provoking teachings. Your listeners can find a free awakening sample that offers them a preview of the spiritual courses, audiobooks, meditations, and community found inside the Academy. So I invite anyone to join us in this transformational journey of challenging conventional beliefs and embracing a personal and profound spiritual awakening by visiting www.davidhulse.com.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Now, just before I turn to the question I ask every guest, I always give someone a chance. Is there anything else you wanted to say? We're going to have another interview, but on this topic, is there anything else you wanted to say today?
Oh, there's so much I'd like to say.
Well, why don't we save it for the next one? Well, David, on our podcast, we explore different areas of wellness, and some people call it the wellness wheel that's just beside me when you look on the screen. And we ask every guest the same question in a context where we all have areas of wellness that are important to us, but not enough time to focus on all of them at any given time. So we do a mini wellness check-in. So David, are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if so, can you think of even one thing that you could do to foster wellness in that area?
Yes, there's a couple of things that pop into my mind that I'm working with. One is diet issues. I'm a great believer that as we evolve to different levels of consciousness, that the outer world begins to match that. And there's a lot of things that I want to change in that area to stay up with my consciousness.
Well, that's great. For me, like the reason why I do this podcast is because I was in very bad shape and I ate healthy, ate nutritious food, started to work out.
Good.
And in addition to spiritual being very important, and maybe it's first, as you say, but the physical is so important. And if you can get a handle on your physical health and eat nutritious food, I think you'll find that very energizing. Maybe it'll help as you move forward with your growth.
Very good. I love the way you put it.
Okay, well, we're going to do another interview, but thank you so much. I really did enjoy this chat, and talk soon. We hope you're enjoying the show, and we hope you're finding ways to foster wellness in the categories that are important to you. If you like what you're hearing, head to our website, letsbewelltogether.com, and then to the archives page. It includes a quick summary of the different segments of all of our shows back to the start. Have a look and see if there's something interesting you want to listen to, and listen to one of our past episodes. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin. Okay, John, here's a really cute article. It's called Really Fun Dates. And there's different categories. So I'll read one from each category.
Okay, so you'll give us a category and an example. And this is great because now I don't have to come up with the ideas. Someone's going to give them to me.
Yeah, and there's
Awesome.
like so many of them.
So much pressure on guys to come up with dates.
Yeah, and it's just, I think it's important to do something on a date. Like say, hey,
Yes.
let's have date night and let's do something, you know? So this one is a budget date. Learn a dance and practice it in your living room.
Okay, we can do that one because we do that one.
Yeah, this is a great date. A day trip in a luxury vehicle.
Ooh.
Yeah. A luxurious date. Go see a play.
Okay, that's luxury.
Yeah. I mean, they're so expensive nowadays. That's luxury.
That's true. Especially if you go for dinner first.
An outdoor date. Have a sunset picnic.
Nice.
Yeah, that is nice. An indoor date. Watch a drive-in movie. I guess that's indoors. I would kind of consider that outdoors.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, let me try
Do they
another.
even have drive-ins anymore?
I know.
No,
I know.
I'm serious. Like, do you know of any?
I think there is one in Guelph still.
Okay.
But I know the one in Owen Sound that we used to go to all the time doesn't exist. So let's do an indoor date, sorry. Tour an underground wine cellar.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Especially if there's wine tasting too.
Yeah, that sounds good. An active date. Go on a hike together.
Classic.
Surprise date. Get tickets to an activity like pottery or glass blowing.
Okay.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, you've actually done that with some other people recently and had a lot of fun.
Yeah. A cute date. Build a birdhouse for your backyard. That would be really cute.
Yeah, especially if you use the right colors of paint.
Yeah. At home date. Make cocktails together.
Well, that one we do. I make the cocktails and you drink the cocktails.
I was gonna say, that's the only problem, that it tends to be someone's making them and the other person's drinking them. And then you keep changing it and going, try this one. And by the time you're done. And then the last category is more. So these just kind of don't fit into other things. Go on a brewery tour or have a drink at a fancy hotel bar in town. We did that in New York one time. Yeah, so there's some ideas. And actually, some of them we actually did.
So do you want to talk about anything on the list or some ideas or ones that you would like to try?
Well, I would like to maybe talk a little bit more about the budget dates.
Okay.
Because to me, I think planning a date, like I said, date night's really important. And you don't want to get into a rut where you're like, okay, well, let's go to that same restaurant or go to whatever. So, and the other thing that I feel is that it's expensive. Life is so expensive. So if you can do it on a budget, that's great. So giving you some budget ideas is...
I love that too. And I think also when you're doing a date on a budget, it's more about the dating than the...
Exactly.
That, you know, because obviously it's great to go to a fancy restaurant and eat delicious food. And that's a great experience.
Yeah.
So what are some of them that are there? And,
so learn a dance.
Okay. So that one. And just so people know, like we've been talking about that on the show. Mm-hmm. We took dance lessons at a community center. Mm-hmm. We're regularly dancing around our dining room table.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
It is fun. So here's another one. Draw or paint a portrait of each other.
That'd be funny. But I don't know. Like, my skill level is so low.
I know, mine too. Like, I'm sure mine's worse than yours. But we should try that one.
It would be interesting.
Right?
But
Because you can do different versions. You can do like a Picasso kind of thing, or you can do, whatever.
But what if you get mad at me when you're like, I don't look like that?
Oh, sure. You won't get mad. I mean, I do that even with pictures. You take an actual picture of me and I say, that's not what I look like.
And you're always mad at me, so.
Visit a local museum when it's free. Like I remember the ROM on Wednesday afternoons in Toronto. It was free. You know?
The KW Art Gallery is always free.
Yeah. Visit a free tourist spot in your city.
Right.
Because we don't, when you're here, you don't want to go to a touristy spot, but, pretend you're a tourist and go. Have a date at the local library.
Our library is amazing.
We should do that. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, and you need a card. And we dropped by one time, but unfortunately it was a holiday. It was closed. We should definitely ride our bikes down to the library and then poke around.
Have a little picnic maybe outside or something, and then go into the library and have a little date.
Yeah.
And also there's like events at the library. We can maybe look it up and see if there's anything going on.
But it's unbelievable how much stuff they have in there. I had to go in there a little while ago, and there's just so many things to do, and there's a lot of people doing stuff.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just give you 2 more.
Okay.
Try finding the best view in the city.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Because I think your work is probably one of them.
Maybe, but there's a spot that's like not very romantic at all. Like it's just a busy street, but on the hill on Fairway, there just happens to be, if you get to the top of the hill and you look back, a really nice view of the sun coming up over the city.
Nice.
And actually, I often stop and take a picture on my runs. I probably have somewhere between 12 and 20 photos of some pretty amazing spots in Kitchener where I just stopped for a second and went, this is beautiful.
Nice. So try and find.
So I could actually take you to some of them.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, there you go. Dates on a budget.
Well, I just love the fact that it's giving ideas, because it's just hard to come up with good ideas on dates on your own sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Good catch. Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
It's sign-off time. It's Elise here with John and Sheila.
Hello.
Hello.
This week has been another week adjusting into motherhood. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but we've had a really good week overall. We're getting to know ourselves better as parents and getting to know Michael better as he teaches us kind of what he needs. A big change that we've made this week, though, that has made a big impact is walks. We've been going on walks every day. And I know we talk about this a lot on the podcast, how important it is to move your body every day. And we're really feeling the benefits of it, which has been really great.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Another thing that we've been doing this week is getting in the Christmas spirit. So we've got our Christmas decorations up. Sheila helped us to make a really cool outdoor wreath that looks beautiful at our house. And we've been really into like the cheesy Christmas movies.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun. How about you, Sheila?
Yes, well, I was going to say that I went up to Owen Sound this week and got you in the Christmas spirit because we put up the Christmas tree and did all the Christmas things. So that was kind of fun. Put Michael under the Christmas tree and took a picture. So yeah, lots of fun and getting going. And it is hard when you're in the house with the child all day. It's so nice to get out, just a change of scenery. And of course, for him, the fresh air, I think, is really great. Probably makes him sleep. So, yeah, walking is fabulous. And you've got so many great walks there in Owen Sound that you can do.
We're very lucky.
Yeah. Well, I had a very busy week. I worked my usual work. I played cards on Wednesday nights. So that was lots of fun. We do that once a month, and I really do enjoy that. And then I went up to Owen Sound, and then I whipped home and did 2 Christmas parties. So I'm also in the Christmas spirit. And they were very good. So that was awesome. And then I actually got all my Christmas stuff up. So all my lights are up outside, and John thinks it's a little too early to turn them on, but I'm like, it's exactly 1 month till Christmas.
December 1st. Okay. That's
So
the
it's
rule.
time. So I'm like, it's time. And it's just so dark. It's so nice to have the lights up, just to add a little bit of light outside. So that's what's new with me. What about you, John?
I'm trying to remember, did you do something on Monday night?
I did not. No.
Okay. So Sheila didn't do something on Monday night, but on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, she was out of the house.
Yes.
And so I had the house to myself, and I'm not going to tell you what I did because I'm doing a little bit of a secret project that I'll tell you about someday.
Okay.
But I did keep busy, but it was also very quiet around here. Mm-hmm. Felt like one of those people wandering around a big old building with, no one to talk to.
With no lights on, no electricity, no. Yeah.
It's funny too, because I could have caught up on my sleep, but I didn't. So it's good that you're doing the walks. It just occurs to me too that it's a pretty hilly city around where you live. Mm-hmm. So you better be careful. I could just imagine you walking up that big hill and then, woohoo, go down, Michael. And he just coast down on his
Little
stroller.
I think she actually likes walking with him in that little pouch, actually.
Yeah, it
instead
looks
of the
really
stroller
cool.
right now.
The
right?
carrier, he loves it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks really cool too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to hopefully get up and see him this week. That would be nice. We hope everyone enjoyed the show this week and look forward to seeing you again soon, maybe next week.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.